All right, so Ben McAdoo supposedly had a heartfelt sit-down with his team, so who better to find out what was said in that sit-down than the guy who covers the Giants for us, Jordan Ronan. Jordan, how heartfelt was it? How much did he get to the players?
Ben described it as brutally honest. The players, they seem to get the point. They seem to understand because, look, as Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie said, you don't want to be that guy who's put up on the screen and basically, called out in front of all your teammates. And that's sort of what happened here. So it definitely caught some guys' attention, probably especially the players who were sort of put on blast. But interesting that CRC, when he asked, hey, do you think this should have happened earlier? And he said, yeah, definitely, I do.
Why do you think it didn't?
Your head is like, why didn't it happen until week 9? Actually not week 9. We're week 11 after 9 games. But, yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a question you have to ask Ben. And, he's not exactly willing to tell you. He just said he thought basically this was the time to do it. And that they thought they could go about it in other ways until this point. And now this is the route that they've traveled and taken. And basically had to call out guys in a team meeting without directly calling him out. But when you see yourself on the screen on film trying to tackle a guy and barely even making an effort and maybe sticking out your arm, I think it's pretty clear. And we're talking pretty much about Janoris Jenkins being being the main culprit here. I think it was pretty obvious, what was going on there, and they got the message.
Now, was this players and McAdoo, or were other coaches involved in this?
I believe it was the whole team. There was also a defensive players-only meeting that happened, and that also, where guys stood up. And I was told on a scale, one guy told me they put it on a scale like 1 to 10 of how intense and contentious it got. He said he put it at like a 7. So yeah, again, the thing that boggles my mind is why. They're 1-8. Their season's dead. Why didn't this happen 5 weeks ago? And I kept asking every week. I'm like, you guys have a player-only meeting? No. Why? Yeah, we think we're all right. We can get it together. It was almost like they were delusional. Like they had this, idea that we're fine. We're just going to put it together, and it was going to happen by itself. And apparently it did. Damon Harrison was on Twitter yesterday. Someone asked him what happened with the season. He said, yeah, we had some really, really, really bad breaks. No, you don't get bad breaks and get to 1-9, right? It's not just bad breaks why you get to 1-9. I think, I don't know. It's almost like they didn't realize what they were in until it's too late.
Now, is there a scenario, Jordan, that you can imagine or come up with that Ben McAdoo doesn't get fired?
It's out there, but I could come up with one. And there's two things in my head. One is they win, 3 or 4 games here, and they play hard for him down the stretch. They lose a couple tight ones, but they really play, pretty well down the stretch. Look, you can't expect them to go 6 and there's 7 games left. You can't go 6-1 or 5-2, right? Because they just really don't have the talent for that, right? I think we can all agree on that. But if they win 3 or 4 games and really play hard for him down the stretch, I think he can make the argument, hey, look, these aren't my guys. These aren't the guys that I picked. These aren't the guys that I would have picked to be out there. You left me with an offensive line that completely hamstrung the offense all year. We didn't play with Odell Beckham pretty much the entire year. He played, 2 full games, I think it was. And maybe he can make that argument. But the other situation I could see is, hey, his one wild card, the one card he could pull out of his pocket, his last-ditch effort, in my opinion, would be Davis Webb. Because this is his guy. He pushed for him pretty much every round in that draft, right? He was the guy in the draft room, I heard, pushing for Davis Webb. So if he can get Davis Webb in some late-season games, the last, let's say, 2 or 3 games, and he really blows up, he said, look, see, if you gave me this offensive line, I would need a quarterback that could at least move around a little bit. If you gave me this, if you gave me that, and he blows up and he plays like Deshaun Watson did, then maybe he can salvage it. But we're talking about pretty long shot scenarios that I just laid out there. But there is 7 games left in the season. That's the amazing part. There's almost half the season left. So a lot can happen. I thought Tom Coughlin was in serious trouble. It's actually my biggest regret. I basically fired him after they blew this ridiculous game to the Jaguars Was it in 2013, I believe?
Yeah.
And John Mara actually said in retrospect later that after that game he wanted to fire everybody in the organization. And then the next thing you know, the Giants did go out and win 3 of their final 4 games, and I thought they were going to finish 3-13. And next thing you know, they finished 6-10, and it did salvage another season for Tom. Now, granted, he had a lot more currency in the bank with 2 Super Bowls than Ben McAdoo has, which is 1 playoff season. But if you think about it, think about this for a second, right? The guy went 11-5 in his first year as head coach. He ended a 5-year playoff drought. And 9 games later, he's all but fired. It's really, if you think about it, a really unbelievably fast turnaround and quick situation about how everything just totally spiraled on him and just got out of control real quick.
So it's incredible to me, though. Like, you just outlined football reasons why he might be able to come back. Davis Webb plays great. You almost have to keep him or they win games. But we're here because players, significant players, quit on him. And that's the thing that's going to cost him his job, right? They obviously didn't do it in 11-5 last year, but this year, for whatever reason, they just decided not to play for him. And most of it's on the defensive side of the ball. That's why I asked you about other coaches being involved.
Right.
Because if they quit on McAdoo, then they quit on Spags too. So this is not so much football as it's about just guys flat out not wanting to play for the leaders of this team.
That's absolutely the case. And under both those scenarios that I laid out for you, they included the fact that they all went and played really hard for them in the final 7 games, because really that's the only way that they can salvage the ownership that they didn't lose the team. Because you look at all you have to do is look at what's already on paper. They've got 2 players suspended, right, in a 3-week stretch for violation of team rules, which is basically unheard of in the middle of that's like college stuff, right? In an NFL season, to have to suspend guys for not following the rules, and then to basically just be blowing assignments left and right and not know what's going on defensively, and some guys basically throwing in the towel on the defensive side of the football the last 2 weeks, it's just, I mean, it reflects poorly on the coaches. There's really no other way to say it. And they deserve the blame.
Let me ask you this about Jenkins, okay? I read today that when he didn't show up after the bye week, that he was actually in New Jersey, just decided not to show up. Then, listen, I can't tell you whether he was supposed to have help on those players or not, but for the untrained eye, I'm watching the game. He quit in that game on Sunday in San Francisco. Why is he not released? Well, I mean, wouldn't that send a message? The guaranteed money ends this year anyway. It wouldn't be a big cat pit. Why is he not released? Why don't they send a message like that?
I mean, that would definitely be a message you could send, but it's also, you ought to understand. I mean, no one has told me this flat out, but he's a talented player. He's a good player. They feel like they need him as a player in order to be a good team.
And that's the mess they got into with Odell. You can't sell out to talent and let them do whatever they want to do.
Well, that's why you always go back to what everyone's like, oh, why are you making a big deal about this little thing and this little thing with Odell and this little thing? Because what it did is it set a standard, right? A standard that was out there, and that these guys, what players know they can get away with something, right? And then they get away with a little more and a little more and a little more until all of a sudden it becomes something where they're trying to take too much, and it gets to a point where it's over the edge. And that's basically what happened with DRC and Jenkins, and that's why they had to get suspended. My understanding with the whole Jenkins thing was that he had kind of done this before, and that he came, he either left early or came back late, and so he got a fine for it, right? So he got a fine for it. So he probably was like, he was actually off celebrating his birthday the previous weekend, and then all of a sudden he's like, maybe I'll just come back on Tuesday instead of Monday. I'll eat the fine, no big deal. Oh. And then, he crossed the line, and McAdoo was like, well, hey, you just can't not show up and not tell anybody. And that's sort of what seems to have happened.
Well, I guess what blows my mind, too, is that forget about cutting him because there might be cap ramifications. You don't want to dig yourself a hole there. But why are you playing him? Why was he not pulled from the game in San Francisco? You see he's not trying. Pull him out. Don't let him play. Yeah, I mean, that falls on the coaches again. They just didn't see it. I mean, Ben, after the game, I'm not sure if he did, he didn't admit it. He didn't admit to it that he saw that effort out there. And so you have to, if he's not going to tell us that, I mean, we're going to have to assume that they just didn't recognize it at the time. Sort of like the same thing with Coughlin and the whole Odell thing.
Right.
It's like he didn't realize it was going on throughout the whole game. And you were like, Tom, you didn't realize these two guys were fighting on the field the whole game? It's like, Ben, You didn't realize
What are they looking at?
Jenkins
What are they looking at then?
Basically not trying to tackle?
Amazing.
Well, but at least, and I completely disagree with Coughlin not benching Odell, and I don't buy he didn't see it. But at least that was a competitive game with a team that was still alive for a playoff spot, so maybe he got caught up in the winning. This is a 1-7 football team getting blown up by the worst team in football. And not only that, they should suspend him for the game against Kansas City. You suspended him for not showing up after the bye. Now you saw the film. You saw the reaction from the fans and the media. Why would he be on the field against Kansas City?
Yeah, Ben did say that there are going to be changes. There's possibly going to be changes. He wouldn't obviously say anything specific. But my guess here is that there might be something where he's not going to come out there and he's not going to be starting at the beginning of this game on Sunday. Maybe he'll be inactive. Maybe he won't. I don't know that. But I do think that there's a strong possibility that something definitely stems from that because, look, I was talking to guys in the locker room today, and they know what they saw on film. They all watched it. And one guy told me, he's with some of the tackle attempts that were happening on the field, they wouldn't be able to, tackle my mother with tackle attempts. So everybody there sees it, and I think ultimately there will be some sort of consequence that leads into this week's game. We'll see how that goes as the week comes along.
All right, Jordan, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You got it, guys. Anytime.